You wake up early, maybe before the sun's even fully up. You check your phone, glance at your bank account, and mentally run through your responsibilities for the day. Then it's work, meetings, deadlines, stress, repeating the same routine over and over again. At the end of the month, you get paid. You feel a small sense of relief. You save a portion of it. Maybe even invest a little because you know you're supposed to. But somehow, nothing really changes. Your savings go up slowly, but so do your expenses. Your investments exist, but they don't feel life-changing. You're not reckless with money. You're not overspending like crazy. In fact, you're doing what most people would call financially responsible. And yet deep down, there's this quiet frustration. Like, why does it feel like you're running, but not actually getting anywhere? Here's the thing. That feeling isn't random. It's not bad luck. And it's definitely not because you're not trying hard enough. My name is Demas, and I spend way too much time thinking about money. If you're someone who feels stuck financially, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, I've been there too. Doing everything that's considered right. Working consistently, trying to save, avoiding unnecessary spending. From the outside, it looks like progress. But internally, it feels like you're stuck in the same place year after year. And that's what makes this so frustrating. Because no one really teaches you why that happens. Most advice just tells you what to do. Save more, spend less, pay off debt. But it rarely explains how those decisions actually play out over time. Now, you might be thinking, maybe I just need to earn more. And sure, income matters, but here's what most people don't realize. The problem usually isn't just how much you make. It's how your money is being directed, and more importantly, why you're making those decisions in the first place. So let's talk about the advice you've probably heard over and over again. Pay off your debt first. Sounds simple, sounds responsible. And honestly, it feels right. Look, no one wants to carry debt. It feels like a weight on your shoulders, something you need to get rid of as quickly as possible. And most financial content reinforces that idea without much nuance. Debt is bad. Being debt-free is good. End of story. But here's the thing. Real life isn't that binary. Not all debt works the same way, and not all financial decisions should be driven by the same rule. Yet most people treat every type of debt like it's an emergency. Whether it's a 20% credit card balance or a 3% student loan, the reaction is the same. Eliminate it as fast as possible. Now you might be thinking, isn't that the safest move? And that's exactly where the problem starts. Because what feels safe isn't always what actually moves you forward financially. Here's the thing. The real problem isn't that you're working hard, saving money, or even paying off debt. The problem is how you're deciding where your money goes. Because most people aren't actually making financial decisions based on numbers. They're making decisions based on fear. Fear of owing money, fear of making the wrong investment, fear of losing what they've already worked so hard to earn. So what happens? You default to what feels safe. You prioritize eliminating anything that looks like risk, even if that risk is actually manageable. You avoid investing more because it feels uncertain. You focus on control instead of growth. And on the surface, it looks responsible. But this is where it gets really interesting. Because over time, these fear-driven decisions don't just slow you down, they quietly redirect your entire financial trajectory. And that's the silent wealth killer most people never see coming. Now let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. Because this isn't just your experience, this is happening to millions of people. According to data from the Federal Reserve, the average household carries significant levels of debt, from student loans to mortgages to credit cards. At the same time, reports from the Bureau of Labor Statistics show that wage growth, while steady, hasn't created massive jumps in financial security for most people. So what does that mean? It means you can be disciplined, consistent, and still feel like you're not getting ahead. Look, most people assume that if they just work hard, save regularly, and avoid bad financial habits, everything will eventually fall into place. But here's what most people don't realize. Those habits alone aren't enough if the strategy behind them is flawed. Because if your money is being directed inefficiently, even slightly, it compounds over time, and not in your favor. All right, let's break this down with real numbers, because this is where things start to click. Imagine you have $10,000 sitting in your account, and you also have a $10,000 student loan with a 4% interest rate. Most people instinctively choose to pay off the debt immediately. It feels like progress. It feels like you're doing the right thing. But let's look at the alternative. Instead of using that $10,000 to eliminate the loan, you invested in a simple index fund that averages around 8% annually. Over the next 10 years, that money grows to roughly $21,000. Meanwhile, your loan at 4% costs you about $400 per year in interest, roughly $4,000 over that same period, depending on how you pay it down. Now you might be thinking, okay, but I still have debt. That's true, but here's what most people don't realize. Even after accounting for the interest, you're still ahead financially. And that difference? That's the cost of choosing comfort over math. Now you might be thinking, yeah, but debt just feels stressful. I don't like the idea of owing money. And look, that's completely valid. No one enjoys seeing a negative number attached to their name. It creates this constant mental pressure, like something is hanging over you. So naturally, your instinct is to get rid of it as fast as possible. But here's where things get tricky. That feeling? It's not coming from math. It's coming from psychology. Humans are wired with something called loss aversion. We feel the pain of losing money more intensely than the satisfaction of gaining it. So even if the numbers clearly favor investing, your brain still pushes you toward eliminating debt because it feels like removing a loss. On top of that, there's instant gratification. Paying off debt gives you a quick emotional win. You feel lighter, more in control. Investing, on the other hand, feels slow and uncertain. And because of that, most people unknowingly choose the option that feels better, not the one that actually builds more wealth. Let's make this even simpler with an analogy. Imagine your financial life is like a bucket. Your goal is to fill that bucket as high as possible over time. Now, debt acts like a small leak at the bottom, slowly draining some of the water. Naturally, your instinct is to fix the leak immediately. But here's the problem. Investing is the water flowing into the bucket from the top. Now look, if the leak is small, say 3% or 4% interest, but you completely stop pouring water in just to fix it, your bucket never really fills. You're focused on stopping loss, but you're not creating growth. This is where it gets really interesting, because not all leaks are the same. A 20% credit card debt? That's a massive hole. You fix that immediately. But a low-interest student loan or mortgage? That's a slow drip. And treating both situations the same way is exactly what keeps people stuck. Let's make this even simpler with an analogy. Imagine your financial life is like a bucket. Your goal is to fill that bucket as high as possible over time. Now, debt acts like a small leak at the bottom, slowly draining some of the... This is where the perspective really starts to shift. Because wealthy people don't look at money the same way most people do. They're not obsessed with the idea of being completely debt-free as fast as possible. Instead, they focus on one thing, maximizing their net worth over time. Look, they understand something most people don't even think about: the cost of capital. If they can borrow money at 3% or 4%, but consistently earn 7% or 8% by investing, they don't rush to eliminate that debt. They use it strategically. Now, this doesn't mean they take on reckless loans or live beyond their means. It's actually the opposite. They're very calculated. Every dollar has a job, and every decision is based on expected return, not emotion. Here's what most people don't realize. Avoiding low-interest debt too aggressively can actually limit your ability to grow wealth. Because instead of putting your money to work, you're just playing defense. And over time, defense alone doesn't win the game. So the question becomes, what should you actually do? Because this isn't about choosing between paying off debt or investing. It's about making smarter decisions with both. Here's the thing. You need a simple system that removes emotion from the equation. First, categorize your debt. If it's high interest, anything above, say, 8%, that's your top priority. Eliminate it as aggressively as possible. That's not investing, that's damage control. But if your debt is low interest, around 3% to 5%, you don't need to panic. you can pay it down consistently while still investing at the same time. Second, don't pause investing completely. Even small amounts matter because time is your biggest advantage. The earlier your money starts compounding, the less effort you need later. Third, automate everything. Payments, investments, set it, and remove the daily decision-making. And finally, shift your focus. Stop measuring progress by how fast your debt disappears, and start measuring it by how much your net worth is actually growing.